Great.
Oh. Just how good it is to know that in this moment we are all
Hey, Elizabeth, when you go back, it's a little bit hard to hear you.
Okay, now is it better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So how good it is to know that in this very moment we are all connected to the one mind, this one grand creative force which have created everything on this planet, all the universes, all the sun, the moons, the planets, the trees, the animals, and everything. Each and every individual, each and every child, and each and every tree and flower. How good it is to know that we are all in this great creative field playing together. So I'm just giving thanks that and bless this session and know that whatever needs to be revealed on this call today is being revealed. And I bless each and every one of us knowing that right where we are, God is. And I bless Rev Deborah knowing that whatever needs to be said through her will be said through her. And whatever needs to be said through and each and every one of us is being said through each and every one of us. Because we're all the face of God in just different shapes and size and colors. So I just simply give thanks, and I know that this is blessed. It's good. It's in God's hands. And so I just let it go because it's good. It's done. It's important.
So it is.
So it is.
All right. Rev's here. Want to turn it on her?
Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
She was.
So how was that? Was it okay?
Did you praise that?
All right. It was awesome.
Give her a name.
Yeah, I know you handled it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, or whatever time it is and wherever you are. As Ade will always remind us on his shows. There are a couple of handouts for today. One is about immigration, and the other is actually a spirit letter that came to Inner Light a number of years ago. I got directed to just go on my file. I mean, I have hundreds and hundreds of these letters. They're about, I think there's 52 in each of the volumes that are now published, but that's just a fraction of the numbers that I actually have in my possession. And what will happen is that I'll just like get an internal feeling and it just says like go someplace. So I went to some of the letters that had been sort of pre-selected as a potential volume 3. And sure enough, at the top was one called ILM's Role in the Revolution. I thought, well, this is interesting. And lo and behold, it was given on February the 5th, 2008 on Super Tuesday.
Wow.
On Super Tuesday of 2008, you know, when Hillary was running against Barack and all of that. And it's just, the timing was just incredible in terms of the issues and the things that it covers and whatnot. And I'll probably read excerpts from that, but I also want to give it to you because I think that it's very, very instructive. It kind of reminds me of the piece that Deborah Filks did that we passed out that had come from, I think it was in the New York Times, where it was her open letter to her fellow evangelicals. And it just did this extraordinary outlay. And I highly, highly recommend, if you have not seen that, you know, to check that out, where she is somebody who had been very, very involved in the world alliances, evangelical alliances. And she was talking about how evangelicals feel about the vast majority of what are the sort of hot political issues right here. And I don't know about you, but I found it extraordinary enlightening and a beautiful expose, I think, of the issues and where I think probably the majority of people who are participating in this forum, you know, actually stand. So she articulated them, you know, exceptionally well. So part of the reason why we're doing this forum right now is so that we can get to a different place of centered groundedness, okay, in the concept of our oneness. And I want to say thank you to everybody who's been hanging through in the series, for your comments, you know, afterwards, and for the things that I've been hearing you say. Particularly since we have not spent a lot of time on the emotional processing, and there have been many things that have been revealed, let's say, that have been hard for people to hear or to learn, you know, or to know about. And the fact that you didn't run away or go like, this is too much, I really appreciate that. There was something, Margot, that you shared with me yesterday on Sunday. Would you be willing to share that with everybody? Would you be willing to do that if I put you on the spot in the social hall?
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing, but.
No, you were just saying about how you hadn't been aware.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you?
Yes.
I was just saying that I have been totally blind to what has been going on because I am in that place of privilege. And I haven't even thought about how things have been going for other people. And what effect all these laws and all this situation that is happening, how it affects other people. Like, it's just dawning on me to start peeling away the veils of my mind and start seeing clearly. And the person that I try it on the most is my husband, because I go home with all the handouts and say, okay, this is what we learned today, and we get to have another little session at home. So that's a good practice place for me. Start talking to him about it.
Good, good, good. Do you share some of the handouts with him?
Pardon
Do
me?
you share some of the handouts with him?
That's what I do.
Okay.
I say, and then he says, let me see that stuff. And then he sees that stuff, and I said, see what I mean, you know? And then we talk about it. So.
Did you happen to share with him the stop and frisk?
That's exactly what I shared with him.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And we, you know, he doesn't buy everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to present it in a way that makes sense to him.
Mm-hmm.
And what it means to me,
Yeah.
what it means to me, and let him. He's an attorney,
Mm-hmm.
so he's very questioning.
Sure.
And that's just what he does, so that's good for me.
And this is good. I mean, that's exactly why we're doing this. It is exactly why we're doing this. That study, research, it's like the evidence is there.
Mm-hmm.
That if you bring up something and somebody questions it, I invite them. That would be wonderful if everybody would get off of automatic pilot with sound bites and actually check things out. You know, do fact checks.
Mm-hmm.
There are even fact checks on movies that are supposed to be, you know, documentaries as to whether it's actually an accurate, portrayal or accurate portrayal or not. So I welcome that, and I think that that's wonderful. One of the things that I didn't go into so much in the stop and frisk is that we put the emphasis on the stop part. Right? The fact that with this policy, pedestrians are stopped. And that we were seeing the extraordinary numbers just in one city, just in New York. We were looking at the data from 2002, 2015, that, you know, it started off with something like maybe 70,000 people being stopped, up to 700,000 people a year being stopped. And every year we were seeing the same consistency. Yes? In terms of the stats. Do you remember some of those stats in terms of the consistency? Okay, so this is a pop quiz for you now. Okay, so flip it out to them, and can somebody close that door, because that's putting a glare. So what do you remember some of the stats on that?
Over 50% black.
Okay.
Every year.
Every year.
Every year.
Okay, yes.
And innocent was like 90%.
Yeah, 87 to 90% innocent. Consistently every year. What else do you remember in terms of the stats?
I remember the kids.
Mm-hmm.
The 14 kids from 14 to
24
were stopped also.
Yeah, it was also in the mid 50s. Yes, and I would be willing to bet that there was a complete overlap in terms of age and race.
Oh yeah.
You know, with that. Latinos were
30.
Yeah,
Second in the 30s.
in the 30s,
And
and
whites were
Whites were on the low end.
yes, and that proportion is what you find pretty consistently in the criminal justice system around the nation. That African Americans are typically twice as much as Latinos, 6 times as much as white for anything, for stop, arrests, incarceration, or whatever. And that age skew that's on there, and that age skew, as you can see, it starts the process so young, so that before they're even citizens, you know, at 14 years old. They're not driving cars. It's not probable cause. And what does it mean to frisk? Okay, technically speaking, I mean, it's like that may be the impact, but technically speaking, it's a pat down. Exactly. And how do those pat downs occur?
Physically.
Yes, you have to spread your arms.
They put you up against the wall.
You have to be,
car.
exactly, you've got to be up against something, face down, your hands up, your legs spread apart, and bent over. Okay, you're bent over, and you're literally being touched. You're literally being like patted down, you know, all over the place. Well, public and everybody is looking, you know, in terms of this. Yeah, it does. It does provide that. And there is an assumption on the part of everybody walking by that what?
You've done something wrong.
You've done something wrong. Yeah.
Are they looking specifically for guns?
Well, with the stop and
That's what
well, with the stop and frisk in New York, which was the stats that we were looking at, they were looking for weapons and quote unquote contraband. Contraband is this interesting term that means basically anything that might be considered illegal in whatever area. So let me give you an example of what I mean. So we've got I just found it yesterday for sure that they're coming. The 2 ex-lifers, Paul and Kaylin, that have been with us. They're going to be at church on Sunday with their respective partners. So doing prison outreach work for 16 years, I learned a lot about this thing called contraband. So say, for example, a postage stamp could be considered contraband in prison. Because a postage stamp has glue on the back of it, which could hold like heroin or some kind of like dust particle. You know, the first way that we really found this out is that we would send greeting cards to the guys with pictures of our coastline. You know, we have a lot of those beautiful pictures. But that was contraband because the pictures were stuck to the cardboard and you could sneak drugs or something like up underneath there. And if you wanted to give them stamps, to give them envelopes that had the stamp on it, like printed. Yes, printed from the post office because it's stamped. So I say that to say contraband could be almost anything. So say, for example, in some states where marijuana may be illegal, marijuana paraphernalia may not be. So you could have a pipe, you could have papers, you could have all these other things and it not be illegal. But in in other states, maybe marijuana and the pipe is illegal. So that's just to say, I don't know what all the New York laws were. So it could have been an empty pipe. Could have been considered contraband if, you know, if that's illegal.
It's just you look suspicious.
Yes. Well, not even suspicious. It doesn't even have to be suspicious, which is the problem around these kinds of laws. It's profiling.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, there doesn't have to be any weird activity going on.
Yeah.
I mean, you could walk by.
What's suspicious is you.
Yes.
It's just,
Yes.
it's not that your behavior.
Right, but they don't have to, I mean, they can say they suspect you have a gun in your pocket or contraband, but nothing needs to have happened.
Correct. Exactly.
It's just actually,
Exactly.
Driving while black.
Exactly.
Which is why
Well,
90% of them are innocent, because nothing was happening.
because nothing was happening. Exactly. And the only and the reason why I'm bringing this up now and starting to relate it to the immigration is that it is being proposed as being part of a national policy, of being reinstated, and part of a national policy as far as law and order, quote unquote, is concerned, when it's already been deemed to be unconstitutional.
Right.
And it hasn't stopped anything because the people were innocent.
No.
So
now we
it
can
hasn't-
add Muslims to the list of who's
Yes.
stopped.
That's part of this
Yeah.
immigration thing, yes.
Was it anywhere outside of New York?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It was
Yeah.
in other states.
Yeah. Yeah. Stop and frisk has been in other states. And they've used it for different reasons, like in Arizona, for example. And it may still be going on, like not too many years ago, this kind of thing, I think that Leah, that you're talking about, that if you looked like you might have been undocumented, which basically became a way of racial profiling, where you could, in fact, be stopped and have to show your papers. You know, have to prove that you were, in fact, you know, an American citizen. Yeah. And, you know, there's also these kind of policies get complicated because there's so many other factors in it, like incentives for so many stops. You know, I don't know about New York. I only know about California.
Well, that's
but
just like traffic laws.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Where,
Why are you stopping anybody?
well, you know, you got to have a quota.
Yeah.
Like you have to have a quota of so many stops, and because the money from the fines is revenue for you know, like for the county, that's,
Are you saying quotas for stop and frisk?
no, quotas for motor vehicle stops.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. That it's like, I don't know if there were quotas for stop and frisks, but I know that there are quotas for vehicular stops. And all I'm saying is that it's complicated in terms of why things are happening, or who gets picked, or like the lowest hanging fruit, like with the drug, the initial stuff on the war on drugs was not really aimed at the everyday, you know, petty kind of pot smoker. It was really supposed to be towards stopping drug trafficking, but with the war on drugs and you getting money for the arrest and whatnot, it started to become the lower hanging fruit, which hasn't proven to really, you know, stop the curtail, you know, drugs or whatnot coming in. But the bigger piece of this, as we've been talking about in terms of how we're framing this, is not to get stuck on the sense of the abuse or the, you know, marginalization or the way in which people have been discriminated or oppressed, is to flip it on the other side and go after the whole justification and reasoning of it to begin with, that this was under, quote unquote, the law and order banner. And this is when the rest of the citizens have to say no. No, not put the burden on the backs of the people who are being stopped and frisked, but on the rest of the society to say, no, it's not okay that innocent people along the street are just being stopped. Because we know that if it were a different profile, no. You know, now this may seem like a hard thing to say, but I really believe that if white boys had a better chance of going to prison than to college, the police system would be revised.
Oh, yeah.
I believe that with all of my heart. If 25% of them were somehow caught up in the criminal justice system, I think there'd be some changes. I really do. And it's this kind of way that we sometimes just implicitly, by our ignorance or other things, wind up like colluding. And I'm not saying that there are not many really difficult, challenging situations that are going on in our world. For such a time as this, we have been focusing on the issues that are the political hot buttons right now, that are the things of conversation. You know, what's happening with, you know, police reform. We're going to talk about immigration reform, what's happening with, you know, pro-choice, or what's happening with health stuff, and going back to the origins. That's the piece that I think has been unique about what we've been doing here for the past, I don't know how many weeks. It's really going back, what I call, to source documents for the understanding, and once again, not to point the fingers, but for us to really understand that the idea of the liberty and justice for all has never been there. It's a very different story to feel like we had a commitment to something, and for some reason or another, we haven't been completing our commitment. Because what it does is it allows the story to keep going on out there about the level playing field, about the fact that there's equal access for anybody. It's somehow or another, it's groups' choice or their fault, somehow or another, the lot or condition that they have found themselves in. When what we'll see, even with immigration here too, it's never been that way. So we're having to build the foundation now. we're having to be the equivalent of like the new quote unquote founding fathers. That we're having to found a new nation that really is based upon the idea that there's room enough for all and equality and justice for all, because we've never had it. It's never been there. It's just never been there. Yeah, Barbara?
For me, it's like a paradigm of power.
Yes.
And when you're being frisked, it's an exercise and demonstration of I have power over you.
Yes.
And supremacy. And the media tends to put out fear to people, saying, okay, you're under threat. These people are threatening to you.
Yeah.
So we're going to take care of you. Don't worry. We got it under control. We're going to institute these laws, which really take away rights and freedom, in order to protect you.
Right.
So then everybody's kind of under this false sense of safety against an imaginary threat.
Right. And the threat is most often to the sense of supremacy. That's what's threatened the most. Also, the revisionist history that we talked about. It's where you turn it around. You turn it around so that the perpetrator becomes the victim. Remember I said nobody ever throws the first punch, ever. Everybody always thinks that they are operating in self-defense. Everybody always operates in self-defense. And this piece that I'm talking about now is where the tide turns. If I were doing a diversity training, I could give you examples in really graphic ways. I'll just kind of synopsis. It's where you turn the stereotype of a group into something that is kind of laughable or inferior or not to be taken seriously, and you flip it around to where they now are some kind of a threat. And that switch happens when the groups are coming into their own sense of empowerment and starting to get out from underneath the marginalized status. So you go from like the little lady, you know, and the joke about, you know, women as inferior and whatnot, to, you know, the bra burning feminist. You know, you go from the, you know, the sissy, effeminate queens to the militant homosexuals. There's this way that it's like you flip it around, so it's not just these little marginalized people over here, but we have reason to be afraid. And even this portrayal now of Mexican immigrants as being murderers and rapists. And I mean, it's just like, really? Really? But it's selling. But it's selling. And it's revision. Once again, it's revisionist history. It's revisionist history. You know, I mean, who's getting raped? It's the women trying to cross the border. You know, it's the ones that are being put in all of these untenable positions in people's homes, you know, and living there and at the mercy of, you know, the men. And I mean, it's revisionist history. It's kind of the lynching of black men about like wanting white women or raping white women. It's like, are you kidding me? I mean, when you look through history, who raped whom? It's like, are you kidding me? Yeah, you know, so, but it's part of the way that it's part of the way that it works. And all I'm saying is, like, don't get bamboozled. Don't get bamboozled, because when you hear these things and you hear this fear coming up, it's usually the reverse. It's usually the reverse, but people don't know it. Like, you take the term, I remember we used to have this term growing up, I don't know if they still use it, an Indian giver. Do you remember that? Okay, what was it? What was an Indian giver? I'm going to ask somebody online. What was an Indian giver? What did that mean?
I think what I understand it to be is you're given something, but then you're sort of tricked into giving it back. With there's something you give with one hand and taking back with another hand.
Yes, yes, yes. And it got associated, it's like it got associated, quote unquote, with Indians. But what was the truth of the matter in terms of how that came to be? It was the other way around. It was that all of the treaties and all the promises that had been given to the natives were always being broken. They were always being given stuff and taken back. This idea, you know, what was it, like white men speak with forked tongue, I think was like the phrase that they used to use. But this revisionist history, or we were talking about like the scalping, where the way that we would always see it portrayed was that the natives were like scalping the cowboys, or, you know, scalping the white people, right? That's what we thought scalping was something that the natives did. But when in fact it was the other way around. So that's what happened to the natives. They got paid. The bounty hunters got paid for clearing out the prairie so that the white settlers could come. And the only way that it's too much to carry dead bodies back to prove that you actually killed them, but that long ropey hair, white people didn't have that kind of hair. So if you brought back part of a scalp that had that kind of hair attached to it, so you knew it wasn't horsehair, well, now you could see it's really a human scalp, that was the evidence. But it's revisionist history that says it was the other way around. And we buy into that and don't recognize when we see it. There's nothing that happens on the collective level that doesn't happen on the individual level. If you look at your home, if you look at arguments that you're having with your spouse, if you're looking at things that are happening with your children, or, you know, siblings one with another, does not the same thing happen? I love the way that Marianne Williamson put it when she said that every argument, particularly between couples was always a race to the spot of victim. That each is trying to prove that they've been hurt the most. And you'll always see this projection. I find it just extraordinary. Whenever I do couples counseling, they're saying the same thing about each other. You know, you don't listen. No, you don't listen. You know, you're taking me for granted. No, you take me for granted. You know, you always are trying to control. No, you're the one who's controlling. You know, it's the same. It's this.
One-upping each other.
It's the one-upping each other to, like, who's really the bad guy? It's never me. It's always you. And even if I did do something, I can't see what I did because it's you. And it's always going to be rewritten in my mind so that I'm the innocent and you're the guilty.
You have to change so I can feel better.
Yeah, exactly. You have to change so I can feel better. So we can't solve this at a large macro level if we're still doing it micro. If we're still doing it at home. If we're still doing the otherizing, and it's them who's causing that problem. And it would be better if so-and-so didn't do this, and this one's blocking me, and this one's stopping me, and like all these reasons, wherefore outside of the oneness. Outside of it. Like, we got to start home first. We got to start home. first. And we do our own profiling in our own kind of way, where whatever, just because you're a male, just because you're a female, just because you're older, just because you're younger, just because you're this position in the family, or you're that position in the family. Like, I'm already suspecting you. You didn't even have to do anything. You're my ex-husband. I'm already against what you have to say before you say it. Just like we were doing this gridlock that we were having in Congress. It's like before it was could even be suggested. Yeah. It's like where the goal was to block. The goal was to block. But how much do we do that in our own lives sometimes? Where we're not even thinking about it. Okay. And I don't even want to kind of think maybe you might even kind of sort of have a point. Because the allegiance in our group means that collectively we have to disagree with you. Or there's a disloyalty. How dare you agree with management? We're line staff. How dare you take up with your sister? You know how she treated me. You know that. No, we can't understand that. Well, we're the men. It's our job not to understand the women. That's part of what makes us the men. What are you talking about, sissy boy, that we need to pay more attention to your mother's feelings? What are you talking about? Grow up. Battle the sexes, don't you know? You're going to make us lose. We do this stuff all the time, and then it just gets supersized. Well, we're Democrats. We're against all Republicans. We're Christians. We're against all Muslims. We're this. I don't want to hear it. So I don't even want to hear it.
Don't confuse me with the facts.
Don't confuse him with the facts. But we have an extraordinary opportunity to build bridges if we will listen. We have an extraordinary opportunity to build bridges if we will listen. There's not a wholesale anything. There's not, let's stop profiling. All of them are bad. All of them are this. All the Bernie people are this. All the Trump people are that. Yeah, all the this or that. No, it doesn't help. It doesn't help. Because if we're all just bad-mouthing each other, that's just more bad-mouthing. And it doesn't matter to a certain extent for purposes of what we're doing here, who wins? Because the social climate is not going to change overnight. In fact, it'll intensify. Because at least now there's hope on these sides that they have a chance. And when it becomes clear that somebody doesn't, there'll be backlash. So there's a graciousness of heart that has to happen here. With this oneness, it means everybody. Just breathe that in. He's like, are you one with all the people that you don't like? With all this oneness, but can you say I am one with Trump? Well, at least it's an honest, no is an honest answer. Okay? But until you can say that, We're not doing the work. This is an interesting thing about this work. You have to be willing to give what you want to have. You have to give what you want to have. If you want to be included, you have to. If you want to be included, then you have to include. If you're tired of other people feeling like treating you like you're not one with them, then you got to do that.
So Elizabeth says, like, I'm interested in listening to how you feel and what you think. That, and Ray says, as long as I remember to separate him from his behavior. Him from his behavior, yes.
We move from the I-thou relationship to the I-it relationship. Remember we were talking about that. We stop letting people be people. We so associate people with what they do, with what they think, with the opinions that they express, to what they've done, that we no longer see people. I see you and I see what you've done. That's why we can't get to forgiveness on anything. Because we stop seeing people. But there has to be a oneness. You are not going to do good social justice work until there is a oneness. And that cannot be conditional. Ever. Yes.
I cannot reconcile. I'm having the most trouble reconciling into my world. Child molesters, rapists, murderers, people who do monstrous things to people, torturers. I cannot reconcile having them in my world. No, no, and I never will. I can't. And if that's the case, then I'm not going to be good at this, at what we're doing.
Okay. Then that's absolutely true. Then you will not be good at doing this. Because when you look at it pound for pound, and you can take something like murder, for example. We license murder. We license murder all the time. And it's full of it. You even look at the Bible. Moses was a murderer. David was a murderer. It's like all of the great, they were all murderers. The child molesters, yeah. And you know what's interesting about that, and I'm not justifying people's behavior, but you show me a child molester and I'll show you a molested child.
That's right. Right on.
Now, when they're a child, we have compassion for them. But when they're adult, we don't. Okay? But they are cycles of abuse. They are cycles of abuse. They are with you and they are among us all the time. And all I can say is that the same thing that you're saying now, that's how people feel about you being gay. That's I cannot reconcile it. They'll be, I cannot, gay people, no. I just cannot stand having gay people. They are satanic and, you know, God hates them. And there's just no room for gay people in this church. There's no room for gay people who like to do anything. No, it's wrong. The point is that as long as there is a loophole, as long as there is everybody but, then it's a framework where it's always going to be something. It's always going to be something. We are commanded to love and not to judge.
Hurt people.
But listen to what we're saying. Remember I said before that if you have this notion that God is going to punish people for all eternity, and God is going to separate us for all eternity, then why be nice now? Remember that? Okay. So, is God forgiving or not? Are people redeemable or not? Because I'm telling you now, that on Sunday, Paul Ingan is going to be here. Okay? And he's one of my role models. 28 years. 28 years. In prison.
He's a practitioner.
And both of them are like practitioners. And Kaylin, 20 years in prison. Kaylin was in under 3 strikes. And the drug stopped. Paul was in for double murder. Okay. And I'm sitting here because I have worked with them. I have worked with them. And we have all done really hellacious things at different points in time. And all I can say, and I'm not being mean when I say this, but I put out a prerequisite in the beginning about people doing this work, because I knew where we were going to go. There were two prerequisites: that you had an inclusive spiritual practice and or a lifetime of doing social justice work. Both will be good, but like either or. And all I can tell you is that I can appreciate the sentiment, but it is such a fine line. Most of America, most of the people around the world look at America as murderers.
We are. It's true.
That we are just murderers all over the planet. And that they are justified in killing us because we've killed so many people. And the point is not, was anything really heinous or bad, but it's to say, can we not lose sight of people's humanity? We don't know why they've done what they've done, or the circumstances or the conditions that they've done what they've done. What I contend is that no matter what any of us have done, no matter what any of us have done, we can still together build the beloved community. That's what I believe. Like Newton in his words, Amazing Grace. I once was lost, I was blind and now I see. I once was lost, now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. Which is a spin-off of what Paul said in the Bible. Saul turned Paul, who on his road to Damascus was busy persecuting and killing Christians. The Apostle Paul, that's what he was doing. He wasn't a disciple. He never knew Jesus. I think personally, if he knew Jesus, he would have written different stuff. That's an aside. But it says that a transfigured Jesus met him on the road to Damascus. And the light was so bright, it blinded him for 8 years. And then he did a turnaround. And he became a Christian. And he's one of the people who put forth then a lot of what we know of as the Christian doctrine. So Newton, who wrote Amazing Grace, was a slave trader. That tune was an old mourning song, African mourning song, written in the black pentatonic scale, 5 keys. And he heard that and he repented. Just like Paul, he says, I've been oppressing these people. I was blind, but now I see. I was lost, but now I'm found. And that's become like the equivalent of the American hymn. Yeah, Barbara?
I was reading the memoirs of the Peace Pilgrim, and she talked about, this is a woman who set out to walk for peace. And she was picked up by a man, And she was riding with him, and she got a weird vibe off of him. She felt she was in danger. But she spoke to his radiant being and spoke to his pain and showed so much love and compassion. And he admitted that he picked her up. His plan was to rape her and kill her. And he turned out to be one of her biggest supporters from that point on. So I think being able to see the radiant being in an axe murderer is what it takes.
Yes. So can I ask you something? No, back to Caleb. Calvin. When you say you can't accept them in your life, do you consider yourself better than them? And that's why you can't accept them?
Better isn't the right word.
Okay.
I was taught that only God can forgive, and I believe that. I believe that. I always have. I still do believe that God can forgive. I can't. I don't even know how.
Okay.
I literally do not know how.
Okay.
Well, better is not the right word. I believe that there are some people who are not redeemable. These are the people we call psychopaths, not sociopaths. Psychopaths. They were born with a defect that they can commit all kinds of acts and not feel any remorse.
Is every murderer a psychopath?
No.
Okay.
No.
So what does it do for you to not accept them? What is it? What is the purpose of saying I can't accept them?
I don't understand the question.
For what purpose? I mean, what gets accomplished by not accepting them?
I cannot accept them.
Okay, and what does that do for you to not accept them? What's the rationale for that? What does it bring you that you otherwise wouldn't get? What does it accomplish?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
Okay, I want you to think about that.
I really don't know how to answer that.
And I really want you to think about that. I really, really, really want you to think about that.
What does it accomplish?
Yeah, because you're very adamant about it. You're very passionate about it. So it must have a reason. It must have a justification that to take that stance accomplishes something. It's got a lot of energy behind it. It does. So for what purpose? What does it do? What does it bring you?
It doesn't bring me anything.
But it brings you something because you're very adamant about holding on to it and not giving it up. So it has to have some perceived benefit.
But how does it serve me?
Yeah.
That's pushing me. How does it serve me?
Yeah, how does it serve you?
It keeps me from acknowledging them in my world.
And how does that serve you? What's the benefit of that?
I don't even know who they are.
Wait, but what's the benefit? What does that accomplish?
I don't know that yet.
Okay, I want you to think about that, okay? Because this is part, I contend that that's part of the issue that we find ourselves in.
Yes.
Right here.
And that's why I can't go further.
Yeah, but it's the kind of, I'm taught this, I'm taught these people aren't redeemable, they're bad, they're, whatever, but I'm not understanding for what purpose.
I want to qualify something. As far as murderers go, there are people who are called murderers, but they killed for passion. They killed for mercy killing. Mercy killers are called murderers. I don't condemn them.
Okay.
I don't not want them in my life.
Okay. Here's the point.
Here's rapists and child molesters and people who torture people just because. Just because.
And I'm not saying you got to have people in your life. Okay. When I say oneness, I'm not saying you got to marry everybody. You got to be friends with everybody. You got to hang out with everybody. Okay. Oneness, I'm talking about the agapeo love. That's what I am talking about. That we were commanded to love everyone, to love your neighbor as yourself. And that included everybody. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. This includes everybody, is my point. Is it as long as there's anything in your heart where you in your mind think that you cannot be one with somebody because of something that they've done or whatever, we're off and we're never going to be able to do this work. That's what I am saying, is that you, in our heart of hearts, we have to feel I am not better than anyone. Ever. And that's a challenge when we have a country and a world that's built on supremacy. That I'm better than you because whatever. Because I'm straight. Because I'm a Christian. You know, because I'm white, because I'm a citizen, because I'm whatever it is, because I'm educated, because I'm rich, because I'm like whatever that is. And the converse is also true. If you wanted to say something.
Yeah, what has helped me so much? What has helped me so much to move into this place of oneness. And I don't have to qualify my background of, growing up in this house and fundamental Christian and all of that, is seeing the Christ in every person and continuing to look until you see the Christ in every person. It was one of the lessons in the Course of Miracles. And I was in a study group and we were really challenged to do that. And it just took me to a whole new level of oneness, because all judgment had to be suspended. It didn't matter what their actions were. It didn't matter anything. No judgment. Just see the Christ in them. That they were born, they were created by God in God's image. And to keep looking until you can see the Christ. And that just bridged a lot of gaps.
So I'm Milo, and this last weekend I was with a young white couple, 2 small children, and going on and on about the politics. And I said, I want to ask you a question. Can you imagine what your life would look like if you were black? And they really stopped for a minute, said, oh, that would be horrible, and went right on like this, okay? And I did, I said, and I stopped them again, and I said, well, I asked myself that question. And I would really like for you to ask yourself that question again sometime. And I suppose what I'm asking you is, I see that there's something about not knowing where to go from there, which is why I'm here. But I believe if I understood that answer, I might have this answer. Can you say anything to that?
Yeah, you know, we're not here to judge. We're here to have a vision. I'm not trying to train you how to pick apart everybody's argument and challenge them. That's not this class. Now, if this was a training, let's say this was, you know, like a Prop 8 kind of setting or training, and I'm sending you out there to speak to the media or this or that, you know, I would give you how to go toe to toe and deconstruct and whatnot every argument. Okay. That's not what this is about. What this is about is vision. Okay, is being able to just keep articulating a vision. And let he who has ears to hear, let him hear. Calling people up to a vision of fairness and a vision that says supremacy is not okay. That it's just not okay. That I have a vision where everybody's treated fairly. I have a vision of a democracy where people are not profiled and that they are not stopped, and that's unacceptable in a democracy. To say we're better than that. Not better than other people, but that it isn't our highest self and that we're really not living up to our own democratic values. That we can do better. That's what this is about. It's about getting all of us to the point where we can say with some confidence, this is what I believe. This is what I believe. So I'll hand you this thing on the immigration, but remember those of you who were back here in the beginning, and we were talking about the Dred Scott decision and the things that came out of that. And I thought it was a really good way of showing how the Supreme Court would rule time and time and time again that the United States was never set up for everybody. It just wasn't. And I've given you some excerpts here. You can read it on your leisure. You can pick it up, check out the websites. And for those of you who are registered with the class, we'll send it out to you.
I emailed those.
Okay, so that you can take a look at it too. And there were like 2 points in this that I wanted to bring up today before we closed out, is that this whole notion about take all of the illegal aliens, quote unquote, the undocumented workers, and whatnot, and send them back home, which is like a proposal that's out here now. We're talking about 11 million undocumented workers in the United States. Do you want to guess what percentage of those are not white? Close. 90%. 90%. That's 11 million people. It's like 10 million people. Okay. In terms of this rhetoric and like, what is this about? That there are a lot of kind of like hidden things like up underneath it all. Okay. In terms of what all that's about. And it says that the state of affairs should not be surprising. In fact, they have their roots in a long, explicit, and unapologetic tradition of restricting U.S. immigration and citizenship to white people. The common modern expressions of they should speak English, they should go back to where they came from, they're illegals, have deep roots in American history. After all, for most of the country's first century, only white people could become U.S. citizens. For most of the second century, only white people could enter America and stay. As one of its initial acts, for example, the U.S. Congress passed the Immigration and Naturalization Act in 1790, stating that citizenship was reserved to free white persons. This framework guided immigration policy for 164 years, and the Supreme Court regularly reaffirmed the validity of the quote-unquote whites only sign on the doorway to the United States. In 1857, the court ruled, quote-unquote, citizenship was perfectly understood to be confined to the white race. Remember, this was about 2 years after the Dred Scott decision that we were talking about, in which that decision was more about people from African descent, but it was not just about people from African descent. It says in the 1920, the court re-examined the 1790 law and upheld its validity. As late as 1920, it was still being upheld that Asians could not become citizens because they were not white. This has been our immigration policy for many, many years. When you look at who's allowed in and who's not, and if you go down further, you say it wasn't until 1965 that we really shifted all of that. And it said, and it explains why 74% of Asian American adults today were born outside of the United States. Yeah, yeah. And just breathe that in for a minute. I hear some sighs on that. The America that I've been saying over and over again, they're different Americas.
Thank you.
And this is part of the protest that's happening now. With whether, and I'm not saying it's a good thing or bad thing, I'm just trying to put things into context. This is part of the protest that's happening now with a lot of the athletes in the Star Spangled Banner about the home of the brave, you know, the land of the free and the home of the brave, is that our policies as a nation have in terms of who gets in here has always been racialized. Like everything else in the nation has been racialized. It's also part of the reason why this I don't see color thing just is like so infuriating all the time when we have so many policies and things that are built, you know, literally around this. So the long and short of this is that the immigration issue, as it's put forth, when you really take a look at it and peel it away, it's not just generic immigrants. It's being geared at like really specific immigrants. And interestingly enough, the way that the country has run is that when you look at our economy and the way that our economy has built and run, our economy has always run on a labor pool at the bottom of non-US citizen labor force.
It's the same in Germany. It's
Yeah.
the same in many, many European countries.
Because we brought it over here from there. That we reset up. It's like the quote unquote founding fathers reestablished here so many of the same practices that they were exposed to, where then they became the feudal lords. Our economy would collapse I'm not joking. If we really were to send all of the undocumented workers back,
That's what Rev said on chat.
Yeah.
Watch our agriculture industry collapse.
And not just agriculture, but primarily it would collapse. But agriculture in particular, from the days of cotton and tobacco to here to right down the street. I mean, we're watching it now in the strawberry fields and the, and the lettuce and everything, like right here, it's like right here, right now, like in our county, we have a whole economy that is based upon this, and even regulations at times that have brought the Chinese in specifically, or brought the Mexicans in very specifically at different points in time, like during wars and whatnot, to be those undocumented workers to do that work, and then like wanting to boot them back out afterwards, or whatever that is. I mean, we've had these long, complicated, or the Chinese coming here into California, and the men could come, but they couldn't bring their women, and they couldn't form families, right here in Santa Cruz and on up, into San Francisco. I mean, they built the railways. The Chinese built the railways. Yeah, I mean, and it's to say that there's a contradiction that we're living here now, as we talk this rhetoric about, U.S. citizens and them taking and demeaning and pulling off the resources and all of the rest of that, when the infrastructure of the nation itself was built by all of these quote unquote undocumented workers. They aren't coming here making jobs, they're coming here filling in jobs that are waiting for them. I may not be articulating that correctly, but it's to say it really is part of the economy. They are migrating here because the jobs do exist for them here. And at some point, it's like we've got to get out of denial and say, this is how the economy works. And we can't demonize all of these people for being here doing this work that makes the nation grow, particularly if they are kind of intermingled with us here all in this society.
I watched a movie called A Day Without a Mexican. Have you ever heard of that? And what happened is, for one day, all the Mexicans stopped working, undocumented, and the whole country shut down. So, it's a movie? Yeah, A Day Without a Mexican.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There was also a state down south that they did stop the aliens or whatever from working there. Mm-hmm. And the agriculture, everything just dropped. They didn't have people to fill those spots.
I'm sure.
Live there.
Yeah.
But either that or you can watch our food price.
Oh yeah, I had a lettuce would cost you $25.
Oh yeah.
But still, even with this actually happening, people still fall back into, yeah, let's throw them out.
Of course. Yeah, it becomes easy scapegoat.
Yeah.
Okay? People are in pain. They're in pain over their lost jobs. They're in pain over their economic insecurities. I can appreciate that. I really can, and I have the utmost in the empathy and compassion for that. But those individuals did not lose their job to undocumented workers. Undocumented workers have not taken their jobs. Now, their jobs may have gone overseas. They might have been outsourced to workers who might work for less money. Now, that could very well be the case, that their job went to quote unquote, a foreigner in a foreign land, but foreigners in this country did not take their job. And if you were to deport all 11 million of them, it would not create a job for them.
They're doing the work that we don't want to do.
It's not going to solve it.
And it's the same in Europe. That's
Yeah.
exactly what happens.
It's the same all over the world.
There, all over the world.
Yeah.
And one day, when I was living in Germany, the Greeks and the Turks who were imported were doing the work that the white people didn't want to do, went on strike one day. That's exactly what happened. Yeah. And it stopped, and the country nearly fell apart. But they were doing the dirty work. The white people don't want to get their hands dirty, so we pull in the dark-skinned people to do our dirty work for us. Yes.
Well, and I guess the
And then
piece,
we send them back when they're done.
and the piece of this that I want to kind of end on with this is that we call it the dirty work because we consider it to be menial work. But it is important work. When did feeding the world become dirty work? Okay? When did caring for the land and the planet and growing food become dirty work? When did caring for our homes and caring for our children, cooking our food, you know, providing all the hospitality services, it's like, when did that become dirty work? Are you with me? It's that there's a service. This is revisionist history. There is a service that these undocumented workers are performing. It is a service that is core to our being alive. It is so fundamental, and it is so basic. How about a freaking thank you?
Exactly.
Yes.
You know, how about a little gratitude?
Yeah.
How about a little bit of thanksgiving? Huh? I mean, isn't that a different vision?
Yes. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a different vision if we walked around saying, you know what? They should all get roses. Where would we be without them? Wouldn't that be a different conversation? They're here taking our job. Our whole economy depends on them being here, and we'd all starve to death. There wouldn't be anything happening here.
I thought about, years ago I was back east working on a construction job. And so I got to be friends with this one young black guy. And we used to play chess together at lunchtime. So he was telling me that when he was younger, he used to go down south, and his grandfather, who lived in a swamp or something like that, that type of landscape, that he said he'd go down there and he'd see his grandfather, and he said his grandfather was incredible. He knew all the plants and the medicines and stuff like that, but he was ignorant. He couldn't read or write. And I said, well, you know what? If you took a Harvard professor and you put him in the swamps, and you took your grandfather and put him in Harvard, they would give him a certificate, and the professor would starve to death. You know,
Yes.
it's that perception.
Yes.
Just what you were saying, these people that give us the food and work in the fields and do that incredible labor where, you know, most people would choose not to because it's so physically demanding.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. And it's the, you know, one of the things that you said struck me, and that is how often we equate illiteracy with ignorance. You know, and in how they are definitely not the same. And the implications of this go on and on and on. There's a way that anything that is considered feminine, and the planet is feminine, working and planting and gardening and all the rest of that is considered to be menial, and it doesn't carry as much value with it. So besides like the racial stuff, this notion of people who work with the earth, people who provide nurturing services, hospitality services, or who are cooks, and yeah, I was about to say, and like taking care of our children. Exactly, it's like, what could be more important? Yes, so there's a way that we have to flip the switch on this, from even looking at it as just menial to this is important work that we need, that serves us, that we should value more and value the people who are doing it more.
That would be a switch.
And change the conversation about this. Because there's a misogyny that's underneath it, as well as a racism and classism that triply reinforce each other, is my point, is this association with being soft and connected to the earth. I realize that it's late and I haven't given a lot of play to the people on the telephone. What is that? Misogyny? Oh, misogyny is denigration of the feminine. Yeah. So some of the people on telephone or online, did you want to make some comments? I didn't give you much play today. I'm sorry. Ade says he's good.
When you're running for office and which one?
What did you say, Ray?
I just want to know when you're running for office and which one.
Yeah. Well, you know, that was my original plan. Yeah, my first 4 years was a poli-sci major. And I was going to be a civil rights attorney, and I wanted to be a judge in my former life. I came that close to law school. I was in the pre-law association, the Blackstonians, and the whole bit.
Thank God. Thank God you didn't.
Thank God I didn't. I'm a much nicer person. I'd have been good though. But I can't exactly say I'd have been on the oneness train because I was in the winning. Elizabeth?
Speaking about the oneness train, I'm thinking about, you know, the conversation you had with the woman, I didn't get the name of earlier, about how to see, this basically goes with how to see God in everyone, in the child molesters and in everyone.
Yes.
So, and I was thinking, so you were saying, so what does it serve me to see them as something
less than?
Less than, yeah, exactly. So then I see myself holier in some kind of way.
I was there.
Yeah, but I want to get out of this. I wanna unravel this. I wanna get to the bottom of this in me.
I would highly recommend my second book, Your Deepest Intent. There's some wonderful letters in there about that. But basically what it boils down to is this supremacy thing. That's all that it really boils down to. That's why I'm saying is that that's the beast that we have to call out. This, I'm better. I'm more likable. God loves me more. I'm redeemable. I'm the good one. And it makes us feel better about ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether we're conscious of it or not.
Yeah.
I'm not like you. You're not like me. I get to have my space pure of you. Exactly. And whether the pure means no Jews, or the pure means no gays, or no Muslims, or no, black people or Mexican, like whatever the no is that keeps us pure, it's that desire for the purity. That's what's got to go.
How do I let that go?
Do you dare to pray the oneness with the people that you're thinking shouldn't be in your oneness circle?
Yeah. How do I do? What do I do?
How do you feel about Trump?
Hi, baby. Come on, hang on. Let me just put this on speaker.
How do you feel about Trump? I see Trump.
Oh my God.
You look like Marilyn. Scary.
Okay, you answered my question. So what I want you to do is over the next week, I want you to just keep saying, I am one with Trump. Look at your eyes. I am one with Trump.
Oh my God.
Keep saying that for a week. And tell us about it next Monday.
We don't mix this up first.
Oh my God.
That's what I said. Oh my God, it's right.
But if we can't do that, can you see what I'm saying? It's like if we can't do that, we can't.
I'm afraid of the consequences of what that will be.
I am one with Trump. I am one with Trump. I bless that part of me showing up in the world as Trump. I bless that part of me.
Now I can
up in the world as Trump. Trump and I are one. We are from the same source.
Yeah.
God loves us equally.
Wait, I gotta take notes.
God loves us equally. We are both children of God. He is my brother in spirit.
Okay. I have to work on this. For sure.
But can you feel that if you can't do it with him, how do you expect him to do that with you?
Exactly.
Okay? Okay? That's everybody's assignment. Over this next week, this is everybody's assignment. Because it's going to heat up over these next 30 days. We got to start now.
When we had a problem with someone, we had to do the spiritual mind treatment for whoever we were in conflict with.
Yes.
We had to write a spiritual mind treatment.
Yes.
I remember my husband at the time. Spiritual mind treatment. Spiritual mind
It's
treatment.
affirmative prayer.
Affirmative prayer.
Yes.
We are one. Yeah.
Pray for them. Pray for everybody. Not just about them, but pray for them. That they have peace. Yeah. That they have joy. That they have happiness. That they have security. That they are whole. That they are complete.
I can do that.
That is not the problem. The problem is, how do I identify with that? That's, where my mind goes.
Just do it. Just do it. Just get the words out of your mouth. Trump and I are one. Just do it. Okay? This is like that Karate Kid movie. Wax on, wax off. Up, down, up, down. Okay, just trust me. And remember in that movie, when all of a sudden the instructor started like moving and striking, the kid was, doing these motions without even realizing he was doing the motions, because he didn't realize that's what he was training for. Okay? Wax on, wax off.
I love that
movie. With Trump is wax on, wax off.
Beautiful.
All right? Love you.
Beautiful.
Love you all. Okay, read those handouts on immigration and the role. It's pretty self-explanatory and it reinforces. Oh, here's the other one. Okay, take care. See you next week.